Welcome to the first inaugural Browns preview show. I'm your host, G. Bush. My co-host is none other than John Costco. You can hear John Costco all over Pro Football Focus. He's always breaking it down. He's always with me, usually every single Saturday on the barbershop. From 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., dropping some of his knowledge, looking at the tape and doing all those things. John, I want to thank you for being on the show. And what are some things you're interested in doing with this show?
Hey, it's happy to be here, G. Bush. It's we've been talking about this for months, and it's glad to get this started off on the right foot, and hopefully for a Super Bowl season for the Cleveland Browns, right? So, I'm just looking forward to talking ball. Cleveland Browns is something I'm obviously really passionate about, and just really excited to get that started, and talking about how the Baker's progress, what the defense is doing, all the new additions there. What the wide receiver core is looking like, and there's just a lot of exciting things to talk about with Cleveland Browns football this year.
Definitely. It's going to be a great year. Win, lose, or draw. I think more wins than losses and draws. I think this is going to be an excellent platform for us to talk about the games, preview the games, and to kind of break down some of the numbers and just talk football and get into it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get off into the Browns preseason so far. I think everyone's been excited. It's good to see the fans back out there. Main story right now as we go into, Wednesday tomorrow, and then going on and doing the preparation for the Jacksonville Jaguars. One of the things that we're looking at is you got people already on the injury list a little bit. Myles Garrett and Jadeveon Clowney have been unblockable in practice by all reports. And when you look at Myles Garrett and you look at Jadeveon Clowney, have they kind of been the story of camp, how those guys are battling and working off each other?
It sure seems like it, right? Them and something that's going on in the wide receiver core, which we can touch on later. But yeah, Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett, that tandem, we've been talking about it all offseason, how fun that's going to be to watch. And now we're getting to see that in training camp and how dynamic and how disruptive they are just in practice, which, obviously is a great thing for the defense, but, it's a really good challenge for this offensive line that we rank at number 1 at PFF. And so it's just you got a battle that's going on continually there. So it's great to see, these guys really battling, and we know the caliber of players that they are. And it's just having those two guys on the field is going to spell really good things for the Cleveland Browns this year.
Yeah, I think people are going to be really excited about Jadeveon Clowney, and I think they're going to be surprised about how much Jadeveon Clowney steps his game up. And one of the things I said before is people talk about it. There's pride in the league. Guys really want to do their thing. Guys really want to battle and be known. People forget that Jadeveon Clowney was the number 1 overall pick. He's not that much older than Myles Garrett, and he's known what kind of skill set that he's had. It's interesting, and I'm excited to see if he's going to be able to put that together with the Cleveland Browns here. Transitioning to another bigger story in training camp is the fact that we have our 2 main receivers, Jarvis Landry and Odell Beckham Jr., who fought injuries the first year and the second year. Both those guys having, surgeries in terms of that. What have you seen as far as Odell Beckham Jr. and Jarvis Landry? And do you think they're 100% ready to go, ready to get to the season?
They look 100%, from the outside eye, not obviously being at the facilities and getting to watch them, and we're getting snippets of practice, right, when we were able to see it. So all the reports say that they look great. OBJ coming back from his ACL surgery that quickly and looking that good is pretty impressive. Kudos to him for the hard work that he's putting in for that. And Jarvis looks like he's better than he has in several years. He's been banging through some injuries. Last year he had the ribs that he had, that he took a shot in the Colts game, and he was never really the same after that. So then he had to really carry the load for that wide receiver core. So those 2 guys really look like they're ready to go. They're going to be 100%. I would not expect them to see a lick of the field come this preseason, but they
we're going to get to that too. We're going to get to that too. We're going to figure out who's going to play this week and who ain't going to play. We'll talk about that coming up as well. When you take a look at this too, there's a guy, I tell you what, we might talk about him later on as well. 2 guys that really is stepping up to me and showed me something is you got David Njoku and you got Donovan Peoples-Jones, who people all over the internet is going crazy. I got a regular job. I can't just be watching the Browns every second. I keep getting tweets and texts, Donovan Peoples-Jones, DPG. I'm like, y'all gave him a nickname already? But he's been balling. He was the number 1 receiver coming out of high school. He has talent. And so talk about a little bit the fact that now you have a Donovan Peoples-Jones coming along and a guy like David Njoku who looks to me a little bit better in the preseason than Hooper. So we'll I don't know what's going on there. Your thoughts on those two guys, and are you kind of surprised that they're kind of having a standout camp?
Well, yeah, Donovan Peoples-Jones is an intriguing one, right? Because we saw what he did at the combine. Everybody, knows what he was a five-star athlete coming out of high school and the pedigree that he had, but then he really never put it together in college. Part of that is because that the quarterback room that he had at Michigan was not great. So he did not have good quarterbacks thrown to him. Also, in his final year at Michigan, he was injured. He had multiple different lower body injuries. So he didn't look like the explosive athlete that you'd expect a guy to be, five-star athlete, the combine that he put up and everything like that. But if you go back to his sophomore tape, it looked a lot better. It looked a lot more explosive. And I think what you're seeing now with a full season of off season of, not the COVID stuff anymore. You got to have training camp, you got to have OTAs, you got the mini camp, all that stuff. He's really coming into his own. And if this coaching staff can get out the best of Donovan Peoples-Jones, I mean, they've got themselves a surefire number 3 wide receiver that could potentially develop into a number 1 type guy, down the road. So that's huge for the Cleveland Browns if he can develop into that type of guy. Granted, this is training camp. We've seen guys come through Berea that look awesome in training camp and then really never pan out. So take this all with a grain of salt, but we do know the type of specimen that Donovan Peoples-Jones is. And then you look at David Njoku, you could say all the same type of things too, because he's a freak athlete. Guy obviously drafted in the first round for a reason. He's shown though in the NFL that he can play. He's battled through some injuries, and then when he was with the Hugh Jackson, and also for whatever reason was in a doghouse for some part of that year. And then also with injuries that he's dealing with in 2019, with also you talk about the coaching staff that really was not very good for the Cleveland Browns, led by Freddie Kitchen. So, you talk about finally having a coaching staff that's conducive to tight ends. These guys really love their tight ends, and then obviously COVID hit again last year. So you're talking about develop that was stunted for a lot of guys. If he can put it all together, David Njoku, I mean, he has the whole package. He's super athletic and has it all. So if he can outplay Austin Hooper, that spells really good things for the Cleveland Browns for the future.
Yeah, to me, I always looked at it like, Austin Hooper and Bryant, they are solid guys, solid hands. They can do a lot of different things, but you don't draft a tight end in the first round for no reason. And the Browns drafted David Njoku because a tight end position in the league, just look around. If you can get a guy and match him up and do some vertical routes or to match him up on a mismatch, David Njoku has all of that. He has the ability to high point the ball. And one of his things was, Freddie Kitchens said he wasn't blocking, so he didn't play very much, right? He's dropped a few passes here or there. So those are big things for David Njoku. But he's playing well, and you know how it is. People always play well in the contract year, right? Everybody's good in their last year deal. So I think he's starting to see with this offense, he's going to get, singled up. He can make some catches, and I think he's looking at his value moving up a little bit as well. Now we talked about the upside. We talked about some people who, have looked good, but we haven't really touched on the people that haven't done or not looked so good. We just talked about Hooper. Along with him, up and down for Greedy Williams. He's coming back from injury. A little disappointed we haven't got an opportunity to see Grant Delpit the way we wanted to. Little disappointing to see what's going to happen with that. And then obviously we just had the situation with Myles Garrett, getting injured a little bit. Who's been a little bit squeamish for you? Who's been a little bit underperforming, and who are you concerned about a little bit if you want to look at this training camp so far?
I think from an injuries perspective, you're a little concerned with Grant Delpit because he dealt with injuries at LSU. Dealt with, obviously had the Achilles injury last year, so he seems to not be able to stay healthy. And one of the things is that, sometimes you just can't shake that injury bug. So that worries me a little bit, that the fact that he's continually getting injured, where he's not, coming out of it, like he can't stay healthy for whatever reason. For Greedy Williams, to me, it's more of a like when I watched him at the combine, and you take this stuff somewhat with a grain of salt, but he kind of had an injury thing going on at the combine as well, and had to pull out of the combine. And then he's basically just had the injury bug his whole career as well in Cleveland too. So for him, it's more of a I need to be able to see this on the field. We had him as a highly rated cornerback coming out, but part of it was I thought that he was protected a little bit by scheme there at LSU. He didn't really that the potential was there, but he never put it together. So his performance now not being showing up very well in this camp. I know that he had the heat stroke issue for the one day, but and he's fine from that. But there's that's a bit concerning. But this is the reason why this team, this front office attacked defense heavily this offseason, especially the secondary, because these guys, if they don't pan out, you need it. You can't just be like, oh crap, we're going to be starting Robert Jackson as a cornerback. You can't do that in a playoff game, right? So, and then with Myles Garrett, I think that's going to be more of a concern. You think about what this is August 10th, right? So you don't want to try to push a guy like that week 1, week 2, or week 3 of even preseason. So just as long as he's ready to go for the first week of the season, that's all that really matters for him.
Man, I like what you said there. I think, the Browns front office and what they did, they went out and said, listen, Greedy, we don't know. You've been injury prone. You've been doing some things. You've been out a whole year. We need to go get Newsome. We need to go get Troy Hill. Grant Delpit, we like what you do back in the back end, but guess what? We got Rodney Harrison. We got John Johnson III. We got guys back there that we feel comfortable in starting week 1 and bringing you along a little slowly. I think that segues to the perfect, segue into the next segment that we would want to get to is to sit or to play. Are you going to start or sit some of these guys? Preseason, to me, I don't know. I did my show, and I think this was a couple of weeks ago, and I just said, man, look, I'm putting a lot of guys on bubble wrap. I don't need to see these guys. I don't need to see them at all. I don't need to listen. If you want to shut them down and give them glorified iPads or whatever, looking at film, I already know what I got into my top players. What is your philosophy on players? And since what rest versus rust, what's your idea of, okay, I think this guy needs to play or this guy needs to sit? What goes into that evaluation for you?
Veterans, you sit them. You already know what you're going to get out of them. You just sit them. Guys that haven't seen the field, rookies and guys fighting for roster spots, they kind of have to play, right? So especially with like Grant Delpit, you want to be able to see him this preseason because he does have the rust. You have to be able to see what he can do on the field. He can't just go in there week 1 or week 2 or whatever. Whenever he comes back healthy from the injuries that the hamstring that he's dealing with, he needs some place time to get over. Hey, I got to get that first hit out of the way. I got to make sure I can break on these balls. I got to be instinctive in an actual live game situation. So guys like him, and also just young guys, they have to be able to play this offseason, especially Greedy Williams, because really they're fighting for roster spots, starting positions, and also shaking off rust of not playing last year. So there's a lot that's riding on those guys. But a guy like Myles Garrett, there's no chance I'm actually playing that guy at all. And then OBJ, he's not playing at all. So that's basically my philosophy on that.
And I'm gonna tell you what, I'll take it a step further. Hey, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb, hey, you know what? We'll get your work and you get on the side on the bike. We need both of y'all. I don't want no problems. I'm going to extend the blanket invitation to sit on the side with the bike and drink Kool-Aid. I'll tell you what, Baker Mayfield's going to have to fight me. He's going to have to fight me. I'm sorry. He's going to have to be upset. Third game, I might give him a couple tosses. You know how he's competitive, but no, I don't want no problems. Baker Mayfield might not even be playing 2 games for me. The receivers, Jarvis and Odell, you won't see them a preseason. I'll let the tight ends play. They can play a little bit. We get them warmed up. But as far as those receivers, I'm looking at Hollywood Higgins and I'm looking at Donovan Peoples-Jones to be catching the football. I'm looking at rotating all those D tackles. The D tackles might as well get ready. They're going to be playing 60, 70 snaps. I need to see Wilson. I need to see all the kids that did play last year. I need to see Togia. I need to see all of those guys. Clowney, no, you're injury prone. You're a China doll too. Sorry, we can't get to that. You're chilling with me beside me. And then the linebacking core. Matt Wilson, lot of reps. Taki, ton of reps. Those guys I need to see something from, and you hit it. For me, the most important thing for the Cleveland Browns is we need to see two people. I need to see what Grant Delpit is doing, and I need Greedy Williams to show what he. The rest of them, I care less. But those two guys, you got to prove you back from the injuries, and you can stay on the field. Can you tackle somebody? Can you get out of a cut? Those two guys, I have to see, and I think that's where we go with that. Do you have any surprise guys that you think will play? What about Baker? How many snaps is Baker going to play?
One series if he plays in this game against the Jaguars. I think that's all he's going to get. But I think in terms of it's interesting to see because you look at like guys like Tom Brady. Tom Brady will even play a series or two in the preseason. You know, you saw that in New England. You saw that. Well, we didn't get to see it last year, but we saw that where the elite guys still played a series or two, and even Peyton Manning back in the day would play a half. So, I mean, do you want to put this guy in so much in a bubble wrap that he doesn't get some play experience and some live action? I wouldn't think so. I think you want to see something from him. So, first game, a series. You're going to get if you're going to play the starters at all in the first game, it's going to be a series. That's it.
Well, you know what? I'm going to be anxious to see who's going to make that report going on to the week. Obviously, the game is on Saturday in Jacksonville, working our way up to that. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to come back and we're going to go to the video vault. We're going to check out one of the names and blast from the past. Let's see if you can guess who it is. And we'll be back right here on the Browns Preview on the Barbershop Network. Welcome back to the Browns Preview here on the Barbershop Network. I'm your host, G. Bush. John Costco of Pro Football Focus is with me, my co-host. Before we got off and took off the break, we were talking about going to the video vault. We got a play that I think is really exemplary of the heyday of the Cleveland Browns. We're going to go back to 1989. We're going to go back to the 90s, the mid 80s, the late 80s, and we're going to bring in one of the GOATs. He don't got to buy a beer in this town ever again. He never has to buy a beer.
Play the third quarter. On 3rd and 10 from the 43. Pocket holds up, and Kosar will run. Huge hole up the middle. Kosar for a first down into Denver territory. All the way to the 34-yard line. So when we come back to start the fourth quarter, the Browns will have the ball after the scramble by Kosar.
to see. Right here, he looks back to see if the defensive lineman, Bernie, we know you're slow, but once you get beyond the line of scrimmage, don't worry about those big guys chasing. You got to worry about the guys in front of you. What's a great run. And that's the problem. Denver, they don't feel he's going to run. They know he'll move sideways in the pocket.
You see that clip. Bernie Kosar, longest run of his NFL career. It couldn't have been any slower. But shout out to Bernie.
Super athletic quarterback.
Super. He was the first mobile quarterback, right? Like, if you back then, you got to think about it. If you think about this, think about the non-mobile guys that dominated back then, right? Dan Marino, Jim Kelly, Bernie Kosar. These guys were just destroying people back then. And if you go back and look, the crazy thing about it is I got into this stuff over, the pandemic and different things, and I was locked in my house, and I was really watching some of these games where Bernie Kosar was putting yards up. People don't understand. He was throwing for 300, 400 yards sometimes. And I think sometimes these video vaults give an opportunity to see what people did in their heyday back in the day.
Yeah, right. Bernie Kosar, I think, is, outside of Cleveland, you think about this. So Nathan Segura talks about this all the time. He used to be a 49ers fan, grew up in the Bay Area, and he says that Bernie Kosar is more beloved in Cleveland than Joe Montana is beloved in the Bay Area. That just kind of goes to show you the type of fans that Cleveland has and how good Bernie Kosar was. He just wasn't able to make it to that Super Bowl. It was obviously heart-wrenching, and I don't really want to think about it too much. But
yeah, we don't want to talk about that.
But yeah, he was a guy that, he knew how to orchestrate an offense. He was a guy that can look over at the opposing sideline, see what the defense was doing, and knew how to audible out of plays. He was super cerebral with that way, and could dissect defenses left and right, and that's why he was so good for the Cleveland Browns. And that's kind of the type of quarterback that you want Baker Mayfield to grow into. That he can be super cerebral, and that's really what you got to be able to do at this level to be able to win. Get to that Super Bowl.
Let me ask you this question. Working for Pro Football Focus, and you guys are breaking down tape every single week. You get an opportunity to see some of the greatest. We're in the heyday of what we do. You get an opportunity to have a guy like Patrick Mahomes as a young guy, a guy that's kind of a bridge guy at Aaron Rodgers. You're able to see the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, do his thing. And you've seen other quarterbacks that have been super electric, like Mike Vick and guys like Lamar Jackson. Who's a guy that you feel is the most cerebral that you've broke down where, you could put him on the board, he do his thing, and he's just able to audible, knows where everybody's going to be in kind of a mold of a Bernie Kosar?
Is it cheating to say that most cerebral quarterback I've seen is Peyton Manning? The dude could be out there and line up with in 10 seconds into the play clock, run it all the way down, call, who knows, maybe 5 different audibles and then snap it at the last second and just always pick apart the defense. He was probably the most fun I've ever had watching a quarterback play, just because of what he was able to do and just how he was able to orchestrate those offenses just up and down the field. And it was almost felt like it was unstoppable. And, as good as Mahomes is right now and what that offense can do, Mahomes is much more of like a talented thrower of the football and just kind of like more improv with what he does. But Peyton Manning is the prototypical type that he knew exactly what you were going to be doing by the time he snapped that ball and where to go with the football.
Man, he was killing. He was the first dude that was calling out audibles. Like, he made Omaha special. Omaha is a joke on Saturday Night Live now. Omaha. Listen, he was the first dude pointing. I would have got insecure. I'm like, how does he know I'm blitzing on this play? Hey, man, he just pointing people out. He sliding, he moving. And I'll tell you what, especially when he played his last go around in Denver, bro, he didn't have all that. He didn't have no arm. He didn't have none of that. He was just out there. He was winning with his mind. He was Magneto out there, man. Shout out to him. I love that part about the game because you can always see little flashes and pieces of some of the younger guys. And so I like to pay homage to some of those greats, man. Moving along, man, we definitely talking about from one, great to the other. We moved from Burton and Kozar to the offensive spotlight. And in terms of the offensive spotlight for this game and for the Cleveland Browns looking forward to what we're going to see against the Jacksonville Jaguars on Saturday, what is the offensive spotlight for this game? What are we looking at? As a person who we just talked about, we might not see a lot of these guys. The offensive spotlight may be switched a little bit. What are you trying to see from a standpoint to say, okay, the Browns are on track to start in week 1, ready to go and hitting on all levels?
It's tough to say with the first preseason game, right? Like, because if the starting offense plays one series, you kind of want to see that they can execute their game plan, that what they're doing to come into it. And then after that, you're looking at second and third stringers, guys competing for roster spots. So you want to be able to see these guys like a Demetric Felton. What can he do as a running back, backing up Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt? That's going to be an important position for this team, because they obviously they love their running backs. Johnson, number 30 from last year. I can't remember his first name, but he was a much important player for them last year. Came in when Nick Chubb got hurt and was able to spell Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt in many situations. He played extremely well in that Dallas game. Really kind of helped to win that game for them.
Yep.
So
Dearness Johnson. Yep.
Dearness Johnson. There we go. Yep. So. That's something I want to be able to see. Then obviously you're talking about the wide receiver group: Anthony Schwartz, Rashard Higgins, Donovan Peoples-Jones. What can those guys do? Backing up these, Jarvis Landry and OBJ, because are those, hopefully you have OBJ and Jarvis Landry play the whole season. They don't get injured, nothing like that. But like we've seen in the past, things happen. So I want to be able to see what those guys can do. And then what do we got for offensive line depth? We have the top O line in the NFL, but the depth is what's going to be important there. You're talking about James Hudson, the rookie that they drafted this year. Are they going to be moving on from Chris Hubbard? Is he going to be a trade bait type guy? Who knows with that, because of how deep they are in that position. Drew Forbes, how has he progressed? So I think that's kind of what I'm looking for is more the backup situation after the starters. So, how is it going to be? Because you always have injuries that come throughout the season, and those guys that are going to be having to fill in and be able to play at a high level.
I talk about this all the time. When people step up, it changes the way you look at things a little bit. We talked about it, and it always seems like it's funny. Hollywood Higgins is always the third receiver until the season starts. He's always the dude. He's always hanging out with the people. You saw him hanging out with Odell. You saw him hanging out with Jarvis. He's there all off season, and all of a sudden, Donovan Peoples-Jones, by all reports, is trying to turn himself into the next Terrell Owens or Randy Moss or whatever the case may be. And now it's just like, okay, well, Hollywood might be the fourth receiver. But here's the problem. Here's the good thing about having those receivers. And I want to get your take on this situation. The Browns are really heavy two tight end. They, a lot of games, they only had tight ends to throw the ball to in the Jets game. What do you think happens if you have a real resurgent, a real, coming of age for a guy like Donovan Peoples-Jones? How does that impact the tight end game? And are they still going to be a two tight end run dominant team in certain instances, or will they run the ball a little more out of three wide receiver sets? Has Stefanski shown the willingness to do that out of a three wide receiver set?
So we don't have much information on that, obviously, because it's as one season of being that. But I think if Donovan Peoples-Jones develops like all the reports are saying, what you see those clips and stuff like that, if that allows him to play more three wide receiver sets, it just allows Kevin Stefanski to be more multiple in his offenses. So it's better. So our numbers show this. If you have three wide receivers, it's better to run from three wide receiver sets, and it's better to throw from two tight end sets, because when you have two tight ends out there, it screams to the defense, hey, we're going to be running the football. They put their base package out there. They have multiple linebackers and fewer defensive backs out there. And then when you have three wide receivers, they match with three defensive backs, maybe an extra defensive back, or sometimes even two extra defensive backs. So it's harder to throw in those guys because it's exactly what they're supposed to do, is stop the pass. So it allows him to be more multiple. He started to see that towards the end of last year, where, early in the year, like basically through like week 12, you never saw the Browns play action out of shotgun. It was like, if they lined up in shotgun, if he was starting to show he was going to hand off, it was a handoff. There's no misdirection, nothing about that. about that time, he started to expand his offense to allow that to happen a little bit more, and that just makes your offense a little bit more harder to attack or to defend. So we've seen Stefanski, progress with his offense a bit, and I think if you have these receivers that are legit, it allows him just to be more flexible with his offense and more multiple with his offense.
Yeah, one really quick point before we transition and get to the defense. Um, I always love this. I remember this may be in about, I want to say this got to be about 5-6 years ago. Ryan Fitzpatrick was still playing for the Buffalo Bills, and they ran they had a little package together about how the Buffalo Bills were running, dominant running the ball out of 4 wide receiver sets. And I was just like, it always stuck with me. And they really talked about, in fact, it just comes down to counting, right? If you got 4 receivers in the game, anytime you count and you see, okay, if you don't have this many people in the box, it's a run. If those people are in the box, it automatically turns into a run. And they talked about how that running out of 4 receiver sets in gun and under center was like propelling their offense. And I always thought that was a fascinating concept in terms of the creativity you can do out of passing sets running the football.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the name of the game. It's a numbers game. If you have people in the box, the more people you have in the box, the easier it is for them to defend the run. So you want to be able to try to pass it from those situations. That's why the play action game is such a lethal weapon, because it draws everybody up as they're trying to stop the run. Through the while it's turned into a passing league, play action works regardless if running game works, and it's because throughout the history of the NFL and football, you're coached from a very young age that, hey, if they're running the football, you got to step up and fill your gaps. And it's hard. It's ingrained into the brains of all football players that you have to stop the run. So when you show that play action, they're stepping up to stop the run, and then all of a sudden, popping up behind you, that tight end's open over the middle of the field, that wide receiver's open over the middle of the field. That's why the play action game is so effective. It's not, you don't even have to be good in the run game. That's, you want to have a strong run game, and that helps obviously, but it works regardless of whether your run game is good. So yeah, it's if you can run from 3 wider sets, because then it just spreads everybody out because you're expecting pass. So it's almost like a pseudo play actions thing where you're expecting, if you're in a tight box, you're expecting, all right, it's going to be a run game. If you're spread out wide, you're expecting the pass game. So if you can do the opposite of what the defense thinks you're doing, it just you generate more yards per play.
That's just what makes football, no matter what people say, it's just a fascinating game. Baseball has its analytics and strategy, but the ultimate strategy that goes into play down to down, season to season, game to game, it's no more, it gets no more intensive and special than football. Now, we just talked about guys being creative on the offensive side of the football. Obviously the defense has some different things available to itself. So let's get into the Browns defensive spotlight. And in the defensive spotlight, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at, some of the areas where the Browns have gotten better. You look at it, and we talked about it a little bit earlier, your 4 down linemen, I believe, have gotten better. It's yet to be seen who's going to, take over those positions inside. I think one of the things that people realized were, hey, Sheldon Richardson was going to make $13 million. I told some people like, hey, Sheldon Richardson is a solid player. I think he did his thing last year. I think he was one of the guys who stepped up late, especially when, some of the defensive linemen went out. Myles Garrett was out with COVID, and, you missing those guys. And he showed a lot of heart with that. But he was not a top-notch, first-tier level defensive tackle. That just wasn't what it was. And I think it showed a little bit in his market value. In terms of the defensive line, what do you think about the way the Browns went about the defensive line? Takk McKinley, obviously Clowney, and the other guys. What way did you like, or you may disagree with a little bit about the way they went and revamped that front?
No, I agree with you couldn't keep Sheldon Richardson on the books for $13 million the way he was playing. Had he been playing at a, I don't know, Fletcher Cox type level, up top, top 10 type level at the defensive tackle position, then you could argue that, hey, you got to be able to keep this guy. But yeah, the dead cap on him was significant. You saved like $11 million on the cap. So it was something that was inevitable because he wasn't playing like the type of guy that he was early on in his career. So I like what they did there, and they've made some really good moves. I think, you talk about like Malik McDowell. It's not as if he's been a good player in his career, but he has a high pedigree coming out of college, 2nd round pick. Can he turn it around if he can get be on the right page and everything like that? Talk about Sheldon Day. He's a veteran. He knows how to play the game. You can rely on what he's going to be able to do. He's not anything spectacular, but he's going to be a good depth piece. Andrew Billings coming back is a major thing for this Browns defense, because he's an excellent run defender, which allows them the edge guys to be a little bit free on the edge to rush the passer. That might sound counterintuitive. Hey, this guy's really good at stopping a run, so it helps the guys as a pass rusher. But what really it does is it occupies those inside gaps for what he can do. And so then they drafted some, Tommy Togiai. He's an absolute ox at that defensive tackle position. And if he can develop and play in spurts, and also Jordan Elliott developing. So I think obviously we know what the positions that they did. Clowney and Takk McKinley, I think those are excellent additions. They probably could use better depth, and then you're also hoping that Curtis Weaver maybe comes into his own at that other edge position, or just there's Porter Gustin. So they are a little bit thin, I'd say, after the top, the named guys at the edge position. But I think I like what they did at the defensive tackle position, because it allows depth, I think, that they didn't have last year, that they have this year now.
One of the guys that's been a really pleasant surprise has been Mack Wilson. I've talked to you millions of times. And people say, G. Bush, you're trying to get Mack Wilson out of here. I'm like, no, Mack Wilson missing tackles got him up out of here. But by all intents and purposes, they say he looks good. He cut a little weight. They say he's a little faster. Is that a product of he's just getting all the reps right now? Or, like if you're spot shadowing and you're doing spot duty and you miss 2 tackles and you only play 7 downs, that looks crazy. But if you playing a whole practice, you getting all the reps, like, oh, Mack Wilson still missed 3 tackles, but hey, he did play the whole game. He look pretty good.
It's a training camp, take it with a grain of salt type thing. What we've seen on the field from him has not been good so far in his career. Like you said, misses a lot of tackles. He doesn't fit his gaps very, very soundly, and then he struggles in coverage. So, is he going to develop? Maybe he could develop. He's a guy that was a 5th round, draft pick. Even Nick Saban said, hey, you're not ready to come out yet. You should stay a year. And there's a reason why. But, hopefully the guy can maybe it's coming all together this off season for him. But what we've seen on the field, though, in actual live games, he hasn't been it. And I feel like he's going to be the odd man out when it comes down to cut time. Maybe, they put him as the number 1, the starter in the unofficial reports or whatever. I feel like that's more of a, hey, this guy is, this guy's, doing better. Maybe we can have some trade bait for teams that might need a linebacker or something like that, because I just don't see it yet. Maybe hopefully I've been proven wrong when it comes to the preseason, but also, again, it's preseason. We saw him in the very first preseason game of his career have 2 interceptions and look like an absolute beast out there.
I was like, the Cleveland Browns have now drafted Lawrence Taylor.
And then it never saw that again.
Ever.
Never. So it's, take it again, preseason even with a grain of salt, because I want, if he does it, I want to see more. Hey, he's fitting his run gaps. He's actually being in the right positions in coverage. I don't care about the flashy plays, because those were flashy plays, and then he's continually out of position. So I take it with a grain of salt when it comes to him.
Talking about flashy plays, coming up next, the next segment, we got something for you. Flashy plays doesn't really get it done all the time when you're watching film and all 22, but getting the plays done, when you got top 10 plays, everybody like top 10 plays. Your grandma can make a play and you like top 10 plays. Coming up next is the top 10 plays from the 2020 Cleveland Browns season that we weren't even in the building for. Imagine what's going to be when we in there. Next.
Down and 10. He takes the snap on first down. Back to pass. Throws it over the middle. Picked off. Taki's got it at the 40, at the 30, at the 25-yard line. Sione Taki. With 3:16 left to go in the game, Big Ben throws his 4th interception of the night. And the Browns defense comes up with a huge play. A huge in the shotgun back, 3rd down and goal. Mayfield looks, pulls the ball down, rolls over to the right. He's going to run. He's to the 5. He's in. Touchdown, Baker Mayfield.
He fires the ball into the stands.
Here, Mayfield on 1st down, and he's going to bootleg it out, near side looking. He's going to go long and deep. Beckham's out there. He's got it in the end zone. Touchdown, OBJ.
Well, he got the single coverage they wanted.
Wow, 43 yards, a beautiful shot. Down, a little toss sweep goes to Chubb, and on an end around, they give it to Landry, and he's going to fire down the field into the end zone. Touchdown, Odell Beckham Jr. Around the horn they went. It went from Mayfield to Chubb to Landry, and the old southpaw fired it down to OBJ in the end zone. His 6th career touchdown against the Cowboys. Wide right. Tight ends off the line to the left. Chubb, the running back. They pitch it to Chubb. Chubb running on the left side. Cuts the corner. Turns the corner. Drives up the field, and here he comes. 50, 40. He'll be arriving in the end zone. Right. Oh, he stepped out of bounds at the 1. Smart move. He stepped out of bounds at the 1-yard line with 56 seconds left, so as to just allow the Browns to run the rest of the game clock out.
Well, that tells you what an unselfish player Nick Chubb is.
Baker Mayfield takes a knee, and the Browns are indeed in victory formation on a 59-yard run. From under center, play action fake, bootlegs it out to the right. He's throwing down the right sideline. He's got Peoples-Jones wide open. He's gone. 20, 10, 5, touchdown! 75 yards on one play. 46, 2nd down 7, takes the snap, play action fake, he's back, he's going to get hit, it's up in the air, and it's picked off. Taki's got it down the sideline. 25, 20, 15, 10, it's Denzel Ward on the tip, and the pick by Taki, touchdown. For Rivers. 3rd down, the Browns shoving off the left side, then they drop off. Rivers back to pass, late pressure coming, steps up, throws, that's going to be picked off. They got it down the sideline, picked off by Ronnie Harrison. It's a pick 6, touchdown.
Well, Rivers throwing late. Ronnie Harrison just sitting out there on the flat waiting.
And we've been waiting to get him into that secondary. Welcome, Ronnie Harrison. Here's Mayfield on a reverse. They're going to give it to Beckham. He's rolling to the right and running. He's up to the 50, to the 45, to the 40, 35, 30. There he goes to the 20, 15, 10, 5. Touchdown! OBJ! He's got a hat trick!
What a gutsy call!
Odell Beckham Jr., 50 yards on the run! And really about a 70-yard run, because by the time he got it, he was 20 yards behind the line. In the backfield, 2 receivers left, 1 right. Mayfield back to pass, looks, going towards the end zone, and it's caught by Donovan Peoples-Jones. Touchdown! He got it! He got it! The rookie from Michigan got it with 11 seconds left to go!
A back shoulder.
Peoples-Jones. Wow, what a play!
Welcome back to the Browns Preview Show on the Barbershop Network. I'm your host, G. Bush, and my co-host, John Costco of Pro Football Focus, is joining me, as he does every single week, usually during the football season, on the Barbershop Radio Show on 92.3 The Fan. We saw some plays right there, man. Guys making plays all over the play. Taki made the list. How many pick sixes did he have almost? Taki had a pick against the Eagles, took it to the house. He also had a pick in the playoff game against the Steelers. So Taki is a solid guy, man. We don't talk him very much, but he, like you said, he's solid.
He's a guy I liked coming out of college because he was a converted edge defender to off-ball linebacker. So he's still learning on that position, and he's obviously super athletic. So if he can continue to develop in that role, I mean, that's a solid piece there that the Browns have at the linebacker position, because he can rush the passer, he can drop in coverage, he can do it all. He just needs to do it with more consistency. He does miss some tackles. That was one of the the knocks on him coming out of college, but I think he's still growing into that role that he's transitioned to.
Segue into our next stop. And we not only take a look at the Browns, but here on the Browns preview show, we automatically and we by default must look at the other team. And you got to go behind enemy lines. So we're going to take a look at the Jacksonville Jaguars, their preseason, and the outlook for 2021 right now. So obviously you got the Jacksonville Jaguars, Urban Meyer, Splash, right? Tim Tebow, another name, Splash. You take Travis Etienne, you take him in the first round, and then you say he's going to play receiver, kinda. I don't know how that works. I maybe he was looking at y'all's books, or I don't know what books he was looking at, or was that Phil Steele? Because I just see nobody having Travis Etienne playing receiver. And then obviously you got Trevor Lawrence, the #1 overall pick down there. What are your thoughts on what the Jacksonville Jaguars did in the offseason, what they're doing in camp, and what about some of the moves that Urban Meyer's made so far, going into this season?
Yeah, obviously the biggest thing is Trevor Lawrence, and whether or not he is the real deal that we all expect him to be, right? Because I think he's the next Andrew Luck, the next Peyton Manning. That's what he's being billed as. And he had a phenomenal career in college, and I think he has all the tools that you want in a quarterback. He's way more athletic than people give him credit for. He could be a legit running threat as a quarterback, and he's also got a cannon for an arm. So I think the ceiling is incredibly high for a guy like that. He comes from a system that is protected him quite a bit, and it's not really his fault. He probably didn't need protecting, but it had a lot of screen game. So I think for him, it's the Jaguars, it's all based on is this guy going to be legit? And it doesn't even matter if Urban Meyer, he's made some weird moves this offseason, a lot of his personnel decisions, a lot of his hiring and stuff like that. But really, if Trevor Lawrence can be the legit dude that everybody thinks him to be, Urban Meyer is going to look like a genius. Because he's going to have this team winning and stuff. And I think he's a good enough coach anyways to be able to do that. So, the moves that they've made, Tim Tebow to me is like, all right, he knows Tim Tebow. He knows the type of competitor he is, the type of person that he is. He wants to bring that type of person into his locker room to maybe set a good example. I can't see him making the 53-man roster though. I think he's setting more of an example in training camp and stuff like that.
But do you think? Here's the thing: if Urban Meyer is playing with house money, right? He playing with house money, right? I got Trevor Lawrence. I'm good for at least a year. Do you think he wouldn't sacrifice a ninth string linebacker / run down on kickoff guy and say, "Hey Tim, can you run down and tackle somebody with your hair on fire?" It just for the sake of having that guy in the locker room to say, this is how hard you got to play.
It's not as if their tight end room is deep as well. So,
yeah.
So that it is something, that Luke Farrell, he was a rookie at Ohio State, that they drafted in the 5th round. Maybe he can develop into something. I like some of the stuff that he was able to do at Ohio State, but then you're talking Chris Manhertz and James O'Shaughnessy. None of those guys don't really pop off the tape with who are they? So maybe Tebow makes the roster because their tight end room isn't very strong at all. So, and you're right. So perhaps he's out there on much more on special teams, and the fact that he is, he's an athlete. He is a good athlete. I wouldn't expect him to do much as an actual tight end. Because I think he, especially as a blocker, that's probably going to be somewhat of a liability when you're talking about blocking. So he'd be in there for passing situations, and he is athletic. Maybe he can do some things, I guess, but he's not going to wow anybody. So
we agree on that. He's not going to be getting Pro Bowl votes. He's not going to be getting 40 snaps a game. That's not going to happen. He'll be by the way, he'll be a story the last week of the preseason, right? He'll be one of the stories the Jacksonville Jaguars can do. or actually talk about. Taking a look at what they have, I mean, the Jacksonville Jaguars, to me, have you seen a team? And let's take a look at this. The team the Jacksonville Jaguars had, when they went into Pittsburgh and beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, right? You got Blake Bortles, and you got one of the best defenses moving. You got Jalen Ramsey, you had Calais Campbell, you had Miles Jack, you had AJ Bouye. They had ball players. Leonard Fournette. All they needed is a quarterback. All they needed is a quarterback a little bit. Have you ever seen a team tear it down that fast in your life?
No, especially with the defensive talent they had. But, what it comes down to is that you look at the quarterback position and you don't have your guy. I think maybe they knew that they didn't have their guy, and that's why they were trying to get their guy. So you look at last year, right? So the top 4 teams in the NFL were the Patriots. Not the Patriots. The Buccaneers.
You're just used to saying it by now. You just got to put them up there. Patriots. They're there.
Right. It's just like old habits die hard, right? So the Packers, the Buccaneers, the Chiefs, and the Bills. All 4 of those teams were the top 4 offenses in the NFL from Week 7 through the playoffs. No other teams were better than them on offense, and I think that they understood that Blake Bortles wasn't the guy, so they needed to rehaul their offense in a way. And they weren't able to do it, and they just didn't have a really good plan of how to do it. And I think they understood they might not be able to afford maybe a Jalen Ramsey. They didn't go about it the right way. Obviously, they now ended up with a Trevor Lawrence, and it might end up working in the end. It might take a couple more years to build this thing up, but they do have some offensive talent on this team. Travis, his name is actually pronounced Ashun, which is weird to me, but.
He's just changed. He let them he let them butcher that for years. You were up for the Heisman multiple years. You didn't say, "Nah, my name is Sean."
My name is Travis Ashun. It's like, wait, what? But yeah,
okay,
that's
okay. Whatever you want to be called, bro. Whatever you want to be called.
Whatever you want to be called. It's like he talked about it. It was like something like a French pronunciation of the name as opposed to. I'll go with what he says.
Whatever you say, dog.
Whatever you say. So I don't just say this name out there, and people are like, "Who the heck are you talking about?"
Who you talking about, Sean? What are you talking about? Like,
this is a Sean guy, right?
Who's this guy?
So, formerly ETN, a Sean. That's obviously with Trevor Lawrence. They're building that team. You got DJ Shark, Laviska Shenault. Those are some talented guys in your skill position, right? So they've got to build up the offensive line a little bit better. Obviously, got to build it. Get some tight end in there that's worth something, which we talked about they don't have. And this offense can be really good. And who knows with Trevor Lawrence at that type of quarterback, maybe he can develop Luke Farrell as your tight end, or maybe James O'Shaughnessy, or whatever it may be, right? So he does need to get protected better. So I think from a skill position set, they're doing pretty well. I'd say they're building in the right direction. They just got to continue to do that. And the defensive side, though, they need a lot of work. That defense was atrocious last year. And unfortunately, they went and signed, a big contract to like a Joe Schobert. And Joe Schobert's a good player, but you don't build your defense with your Mike linebacker.
And a Mike linebacker that's kind of squeamish in terms of tackling people in the backfield and stopping a run. Have you looked around? I think Jacksonville will be a decent story. I think they're, like you said, they're a couple years away. It all depends on what Trevor Lawrence is. If Trevor Lawrence is the dude, you can be good in a couple years. Yeah, I mean, you can be good really quickly. We've seen that with a lot of other people. Moving forward and bringing it back to this game, almost finished here, and we're talking about, this game specifically. We'll get to X factors. Now, during the season, when we're previewing this will be a great way to preview it during the season, but you really can't do X factors if it's a preseason game. So we'll just change the definition a little bit. So for the terms of preseason, the X factor, this is a person who we're going to pick a guy who we need to see something from. I want to see something from the Phillips guy at backer. Where is he? I mean, where have you been at, bro? Like, you're a 3rd round pick. You got some minutes last year. You're athletic decently, but you're always the dude nobody talks about. We hear Walker, Taki, Wilson, and then you're kind of down there moving around. We even hear, Mr. Smith for the Eagles. We hear his name all the time. But what I need to see something from you, Phillips. Jump up and make a play, son. Do something that we like. Can you let me know what you do? You got to have in Madden. You got to have an icon under your name. Are you a tackler? Are you an athletic linebacker? Do you got good hands? What do you do? I need you to step forward and show me something on Saturday at 7 p.m. What do you say? Who's your X factor? Who you need to see something from, John?
I need to see something from Harrison Bryant. I want to see what he can do at that tight end position. We saw some flashes last year in little bits and parts. Obviously, in the Cincinnati Bengals game, the first one, he showed out well in that game, and he had some other good plays throughout the season. But I want to see something from him from a run blocking standpoint, but also as a receiver too, because tight ends first year. I never really expect anything from a rookie tight end in the NFL. It is one of the most difficult positions to learn and to really grow into and play well at. You usually don't hit the ground running. There's only been 2 tight ends in NFL history that really kind of set the world on fire as a rookie, and that'd be Rob Gronkowski and Mike Ditka. So
Hall of Fame.
Exactly. So Harrison Bryant, I wasn't expecting much from him. He flashed, which was great. So this year I want to see some more consistency, and I want that to start on Saturday against these guys. And I agree with you with Jacob Phillips. You want to see what he can do because he had an atrocious year last year. He had graded out at a 39. To me, it was an odd pick when they picked him in the 3rd round. It was like I looked at it, and I was like, that's a head scratcher. I agreed with most of the other picks that Andrew Berry did in his first draft. That one was like
I don't know. I mean, if you're a linebacker at LSU, if you play at LSU, you got to be a household name. You can't be. You play LSU defense, you got to be a monster. We need to know your name, and I didn't know his name. I didn't know him. I was like, I don't know that guy. So let's get to really quickly. Let's get to predictions. Once again, it's preseason. Don't nobody care if they win or lose. My goal is to see whether or not how many times the Browns are going to get in the end zone. Is Case Keenum going to get some minutes, or is he making too much to get hurt too? I mean, because he's rich. Case Keenum is rich. And I think if God forbid, I don't even want to say it. I said if any team can take an injury for a couple weeks at quarterback, Case Keenum has shown he can play 4 or 5 games, right, and get you where and at least go 3-2. Yeah, at least keep you afloat. So I want to see if they're going to play him. But I want to see my prediction for the game. I think it's going to be a sloppy one. I think this is going to be a game that's like a 16-6 game. And I think the Jaguars are going to win. I think 16-6 Jaguars win. The Browns mail it all the way in. They show nothing. You get none of the 3 receiver sets. You get none of the 3 safety sets. Clowney, and Myles Garrett don't play. None of the backs play, and I don't even think Baker Mayfield plays. What is your thoughts? I got 16-6 Jaguars in a snooze fest.
I think it's going to be a little bit more exciting than that. You're right. I think Case Keenum, that would be an interesting story to see who's going to be playing there because he doesn't really need to play. So you're looking at Kyle Lauletta getting some snaps. The quarterback position will be interesting for the Browns and how that plays out for the rest of the game. But I think my prediction, I don't know, 26-17 Browns.
So, we've had a great time. We had a great show. First annual Browns preview show. Make sure you check me out. I'll be on again, going live after the Browns game on Saturday. Hopefully we have something to talk about. Most of y'all might be going to sleep. So we might see what's going on with that. But for G. Bush and John Costco, this is the Browns preview show on the Barbershop Network.